The Akatsuki outfit is one of the most iconic character designs ever made in anime. It just looks absolutely amazing. You instantly recognize where those characters are doing in the story and who those characters are. And it's also extremely popular in conventions because it's very easy to make or even to buy an Akatsuki costume. And even though it's a rather simple costume for you to wear, it just looks great. Now, the Akatsuki outfit has four main features: the headband, the cloak, the nails, and the ring. And I'm going to be explaining every single one of those features in this video. The cloak and the headband are kind of self-explanatory, but the nails and the rings are very much obscure. So starting with the headband, the classic design feature of the headband that distinguishes the Akatsuki from any other character is that the Akatsuki headbands are crossed. The symbols of their villages are marked with a kunai after they join the Akatsuki, which is to symbolize that they have become rogue ninjas, abandoning their former villages. This is something pulled from real Japanese history. When you left a certain faction, you would cross the symbol of said faction to say, yes, I am no longer part of them, I am a rogue, exactly like the Akatsuki members. Moving on to the cloak, the classic black cloak with red clouds. The design of the cloak was to symbolize the blood that was spilled in the Rain Village during all those years of war when the five major nations fought against each other, using the smaller nations as a battlefield, especially the Rain Village. And because the Akatsuki originated in the Rain Village, they chose the red clouds, the bloody clouds, to serve as their main symbol. Conan explains that in the fight against Obito before she dies. And of course, Yahiko and Nagato weren't really in charge of the Akatsuki. I mean, they were in the beginning, but after Obito comes and takes over, then they're just pseudo-leaders because Obito's calling the shots from behind the scenes. But the red clouds were meant to symbolize that, and they just look absolutely amazing, to be honest. One of the most recognizable pieces of anime imagery in any anime or manga, to be fair. So Kishimoto did something very right here. Now, moving on to the nails. One thing that's very interesting about the Akatsuki members is that they all wear nail polisher. But what's the real reason? Because that's just a little bit random, wouldn't you say so? I mean, obviously you could say they wear it because it looks cool. The characters do look very different when they have nail polisher on, but wearing something because it looks cool could be the explanation for literally anything in the Naruto story, so that's not gonna cut it. But this is where we come to a problem, because the reason for them to wear nail polisher is never really explained in the series, both in the manga or in the anime or even outside sources. So we're gonna have to make some assumptions here. It's very obvious that nail polisher is part of the dress code of the Akatsuki because every single member does it. Even people like Kisame or Kakuzu, who don't seem the type of guy that would wear nail polisher normally, they all do it and they seem to be okay with it because they are always with it, meaning that they constantly paint their nails. That's one thing I bet you have never imagined, because all the Akatsuki members, they paint their own nails. Can you imagine Itachi and Kisame painting their nails? Oh my god, Kisame, I found the best nail polisher, you're not gonna believe it. Because they have to do that. Obviously they do it because they have painted nails. They are extremely dangerous fugitives with high bounties all around the world. I don't think they would risk getting captured or killed by enemy ninjas so that they can get a manicure. Oh, and it's not just that, because they also paint their toenails, so they do the whole freaking job. And because it is part of the Akatsuki dress code, we have to assume the one who instituted it was Nagato, because he was the figurehead leader of the Akatsuki, at least. And we see that before the Akatsuki starts to wear the red clouds and before they become this organization that has the goal of collecting every single tailed beast, when they were just in the Rain Village fighting against Hanzo, they didn't have painted nails. So something certainly changed whenever they swapped from being the organization in the Rain Village fighting against Hanzo to the organization trying to capture every single tailed beast and terrorizing the entire world. Now, you could say that sure, Yahiko died, Nagato got very sad, so much so that he destroyed an entire army with that ethereal dragon of his, and therefore he became a little bit more emo, and so I would just want to paint my nails, and everybody in the organization I have to paint their nails as well, just because I'm feeling a little different now, and well, I guess it is to mourn the death of Yahiko and this terrible world. But this is a little bit of a shallow explanation. Now, I believe there's something much more practical about the Akatsuki painting their nails. Something else coincides with Yahiko's death, which is Nagato begins to use the 6 paths to use his Rinnegan abilities. And there is one thing very particular about the 6 paths. They are not living beings, they are corpses being controlled by Nagato from a distance. Now, when you see them from afar, they don't really look like corpses. They are not even depicted as being too pale or anything like that, like a corpse would be, and obviously they're not rotting or anything. Maybe this is because the Naraka path can constantly just keep on healing them, or perhaps just the chakra that Nagato provides them with simply prevents the corpses from decaying, which I can certainly see being the case. But even if that happens, they do not have beating hearts, those paths, and so the blood does not circulate around their bodies, and whenever that happens, the first places around your body that you begin to notice the lack of circulation are gonna be the extremities, more specifically the nails. Now, even if the chakra of the Rinnegan is preventing the bodies from decaying, that doesn't mean the blood won't coagulate in the extremities and make the nails look weird, which would give away that the pain bodies are actually corpses, which is a big secret that Nagato intends to keep, to always come into fights with this inherent advantage of having so many secrets around his powers. We can just see how Jiraiya had to fight against Nagato. He had a bad time trying to figure out every single thing that Nagato could do, and he only really figured out that the pain bodies were corpses in the very end of the fight when he was about to die. So that was a very well kept secret. And if the pain bodies didn't have nail polisher covering their weird, ugly corpse nails, then Jiraiya could have figured that out much sooner. And not just Jiraiya, but other people that fought against pain. So he has to paint the nails of the paths of pain to make sure nobody figures out they are corpses. And because he wants to make sure this remains a secret, he just tells the entire Akatsuki to paint their nails to pass it off as, well, it's our dress code, we're edgy like that, so we just paint our nails. And this hypothesis becomes even stronger when you see that the real Nagato doesn't have nail polisher on his nails. You know, when Naruto meets the guy outside of the Leaf Village after he defeated Pain, you can clearly see when Nagato's casting the Rinne Tensei with his hands that, well, his nails are clear, no nail polisher there, because he is alive. Well, he is alive until he uses the Rinne Tensei, but he was alive, and therefore he wouldn't need to hide their nails being corpse nails. And because Nagato was never supposed to fight personally against anyone or come face to face with any enemies or even allies from the Akatsuki itself, he doesn't have to abide by the dress code and yeah, whatever, I'm not gonna paint my nails. The pain bodies have to, but I don't. Now let's move on to the very mysterious Akatsuki rings. Every Akatsuki has a unique ring. It's a set of 10. They all have a different symbol and different colors, making them pretty cool, matching the themes and personality of the Akatsuki that's wearing said ring. And let's just say that Kishimoto built up those rings to be something important in the narrative. We don't know exactly what, but in the very first arc of Naruto Shippuden, when the Akatsuki was being more fleshed out with a new duo being introduced with Sasori and Deidara, after Sasori dies and Deidara loses his arms, Deidara was very desperate trying to find his arms because of the ring. It was almost as though the ring was something he couldn't lose. It was very important. And Tobi, you know, pretending he didn't know any better because Obito obviously knew things about the Akatsuki that pretty much nobody else did, saying, oh, now that Sasori's dead, I can get his ring to become a member, right, Zetsu? And after that, the rings never really become anything important in the story, even though they were built up in the first arc of Shippuden. Now, aside from the rings looking really cool, especially with the nail polisher and everything else the Akatsuki wears, there are two general possibilities that they could be used for. One thing that's important to note is that each ring is connected to one finger of the Gedo Mazo. When the Akatsuki reconvenes on the Gedo Mazo to extract a biju from a Jinchuki and seal it into the statue, each Akatsuki member has a set finger they have to stay on in order to perform the sealing ritual. And because they always take the same position, the position that's corresponding to their rings, it's safe to assume that the rings do something in the ritual itself. We know that the only people that can summon the Gedo Mazo are Rinnegan users, real Rinnegan users, not even Edo Tensei Rinnegan users like Edo Madara could summon the Gedo Mazo. It has to be the real thing. So Nagato is the only Akatsuki member, well, at least in the beginning of Shippuden, that could summon the Gedo Mazo before Obito got the Rinnegan in the war arc. And because the Gedo Mazo is so directly linked with the Rinnegan, it's also safe to assume that the only person that can technically use the sealing ritual to suck in those bijus is going to be the Rinnegan user as well. We see in the war arc that both Obito and Madara with the Rinnegan were able to suck bijus into the Gedo Mazo, though they did it in a much faster fashion than the Akatsuki did back in the day. Obito, because the bijus were already linked to the Gedo Mazo itself, he only expelled them for a while so that the Edo Jinchuki could use them in battle as Obito was controlling them via the six paths. But as the Four Tails itself notes when Naruto is trying to free him, oh, you freed me, I'm no longer being controlled by Obito, but I am still attached to the Gedo Mazo. That's why this way bigger chain is kind of piercing me in the middle of the heart, and you can't really release me from that easily. So when Obito sucks them in, it wasn't as hard and didn't take as long because, well, they were already sealed in the statue, and therefore it was just a matter to take them back. However, after Jubito is defeated, the tail beasts are released and freed, no longer imprisoned in the statue. So when Madara sucks them in again, that's the whole thing. It's almost as though Madara Madara is doing the ritual the Akatsuki did several times, and each of those rituals lasted 3 days to extract one tail beast. But Madara did all of that in a few minutes to seal all tail beasts inside the Gedo Mazo, and obviously Madara is just built different. He is far more powerful than the entire Akatsuki combined, and therefore he would be able to do so because he also has a Rinnegan and much more chakra reserves, especially in that alive version of his. Nagato, on the other hand, was not an original user of the Rinnegan because Madara gave his Rinnegan to him, and even though Nagato was an Uzumaki and had vast chakra reserves, otherwise he would be able to handle having 2 Rinnegan, he still wasn't Madara, and therefore he couldn't do it as fast as him. That's the reason why he needed the entire Akatsuki to combine their powers for 3 days in order to extract the Biju and seal it into the Gedo Mazo. But because the other Akatsuki are not Rinnegan users, they can't just use the Gedo Mazo or even influence its abilities. So Nagato had to give them some sort of beacon, something that could attach their power to the Gedo Mazo when the ritual is being done, making it possible for other Akatsukis, people that don't have the Rinnegan, to contribute to the sealing ritual, which helps Nagato a lot, otherwise he would have taken much longer to seal every tail beast. And clearly, as the story goes on and the Akatsuki keeps on losing people, every time they have to seal a new tail beast, they remark, "Oh damn it, we lost so and so, therefore it's gonna take much longer for us to seal this tail beast." They already complain about it when they're sealing Shukaku out of Gaara because Orochimaru had left the organization a long time ago and he took his ring with him. We can see in Naruto Part 1 when Orochimaru is talking about Itachi that he actually keeps the arm that Itachi cut off when they fought with the Akatsuki ring, and they just couldn't replace him. And whenever Hidan and Kakuzu die, and after that Deidara dies, it becomes increasingly more taxing to seal the new tail beasts. But the thing is, it's not just the lack of Akatsuki members that makes it more difficult, it's also the lack of the rings. And the reason why Deidara was so upset about losing his ring, and he found it later, but still, he was afraid that he wouldn't find a ring anymore because it's a very important ring. Without the ring, he wouldn't be able to contribute to the sealing of tail beasts, and this would obviously be bad for the Akatsuki itself. Now, you may be saying, well, just give them another ring. It's whatever, man. You can make another ring, right? The thing is, probably not, actually. Those 10 rings seem to be very unique, as I said before, connected to one finger of the Gedo Mazo. If you lose one of those rings, or if it's destroyed, it's gone. Nobody's gonna be able to stand on top of that Gedo Mazo finger anymore in order to seal a tail beast. And the reason why Nagato can simply replace those rings if they are lost is because he probably used something akin to the Sage of Six Paths creation of all things jutsu to create those rings as he summons the Gedo Mazo. Now, we don't know the lore about the rings creation. Maybe it was even Hagoromo himself who created them, or Madara or something. But one thing we can say with certainty is that the Rinnegan created them somehow. Probably in a very specific and powerful ritual that cannot be replicated, or if it can, it's very difficult or taxing, and therefore it doesn't make sense for Nagato to use it again. But most likely he just cannot recreate the rings, and therefore losing one is very bad. One of the reasons why Orochimaru would keep the ring for himself is that, well, on top of Orochimaru being a psycho that just wants an heirloom from the Akatsuki in the time he was there, he also wants to disrupt their activities. The Akatsuki and Orochimaru are enemies after Orochimaru leaves the Akatsuki, and therefore, if Orochimaru keeps one of the rings, well, it's not gonna do all that much because they still have 9. It is still going to affect them a little bit, and Orochimaru even said, by saving Team Kakashi in the Tenchi Bridge arc because Sasuke's about to Kirin them, well, if they increase our chances of killing Itachi and destroying the Akatsuki by 1%, leaving them alive is gonna be worthwhile, so just stealing the ring is gonna be worthwhile. Now you may ask, why didn't the Akatsuki go after Orochimaru to recapture the ring? Well, it's easier said than done. Orochimaru is very sneaky, and also the one who defeated Orochimaru before he left was Itachi. He cut the arm off of Orochimaru, and Orochimaru, well, he picked it up and probably left. Itachi didn't kill him because he had mercy, I suppose. He could have certainly done so. Itachi had all the incentives in the world not to take the ring back to the Akatsuki because Itachi didn't want the Akatsuki to succeed. It just makes sense. After all, the entire thing about Itachi's backstory is that he became a double agent for the Leaf Village spying on the Akatsuki. That's the reason why in the beginning of Naruto Shippuden, because Orochimaru had left the organization, only 9 people were stealing the tail beasts, even though the Gedo Mazo has 10 fingers and also 10 rings. So if you think about it, one way to really disrupt the Akatsuki is to either destroy or collect the rings, something that the Leaf Village actually managed to do. Shikamaru buried Hidan alive into pieces, and therefore they wouldn't be able to collect the ring back. And when Kakashi kills Kakuzu with the help of everybody else, I mean Naruto did most of the job in the fight, but whatever, they capture Kakuzu's body, and therefore for the ring, and it simply becomes more difficult for the Akatsuki to keep on sealing those tail beasts. So it's a good thing that you capture the rings, but in the end of the day, even if you lost all those rings, it's likely that Nagato would still be able to seal the tail beasts by himself, but still, he would. However, it would certainly take a long time, maybe even a month. If 10 people combined takes 3 days, a month doesn't seem too far-fetched, and this gives time for an assault squadron to detect where they are and try to disrupt the ritual. Now, the other function that the rings may possess, and this is also very much connected to the sealing ritual, is the creation of those holograms whenever the Akatsuki has to reconvene and they are very much far away from each other. Every single tail beast sealing that we see uses those holograms, and it's almost as though each Akatsuki member materializes on top of their respective finger, of the Gedo Mazo, that is. Obviously, you can use the holograms for other things like communication, which is very important and very useful. Long-distance communication in Naruto is something very iffy. They use falcons and hawks and birds in general to communicate with each other from long distances, and even though they have electricity, it appears they haven't figured out the telegraph or anything like it. Sure, before the 4th Great Ninja War, they managed to connect the 5 feudal lords so that they can have a meeting, but that seemed to have taken the entire technological might of the entire world, and they couldn't keep the transmission on for too long. It was running out of battery. So just being able to communicate with somebody else across the continent via hologram is just very useful, and Pain can do that. They don't necessarily have to meet just because they need to seal a tail beast or something like that. We even see in the very final chapter of Naruto Part 1 that the Akatsuki reconvenes via hologram, and it's very likely that because the rings are connected to the Rinnegan, Nagato can just use them as beacons and summon the hologram to a particular location so that everybody can talk to each other. Watch this other cool Naruto video right here, and definitely subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, and don't forget to ring those notifications because they help you know whenever a video comes out. All those things help me out a lot, and it takes you 2 seconds to do it, so please just do it. Thank you so much for watching.